YouTube, Captain Mac here, and welcome to another full flight tutorial. This one today is going to be on the Manfred Jahns, or Jahns, not sure how you say that name, DC-3. Now I've put a link to this aircraft down, or I'm going to try to remember to put a link to this aircraft down in the video description, because this aircraft is free. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, this is a free DC-3, and let me tell you, this thing is really cool. They did a heck of a job on this, and this is version 3, and my guess is they're still working on it. There's some things that do and don't work and stuff like that. So I imagine they're going to be coming out with a new version eventually, but in the meantime, version 3 is really good, and you can see that the modeling on this aircraft is spectacular, and this one has the Buffalo Airways paint scheme on it, and I'm hoping to start doing some flights with Buffalo Airways here pretty soon. I was thinking about maybe doing a new series called Virtual Ice Pilots, or Ice Pilots Virtual, or something like that. I don't know. You guys tell me what you think about that. But in the meantime, I did just put out the Constellation full flight tutorial. I really hope you guys enjoy that. Love that aircraft. And for those of you who don't know, and a couple of you probably are already aware, I do have a love for some of these old, especially these piston pounders. I like these old airplanes. They're really neat, and I have a lot of fun with them, especially when they're good like this one. This one's very complex and well done. Now, we're not going to do a full tour of the aircraft or anything like that. This is going to be all about the tutorial, and keep in mind, just like all of my full flight tutorials, the idea here is to teach you how to take this aircraft from a cold and dark state, start the engines, taxi it out, take off, cruise, the whole shebang, all the way up to shutting the engines down at our destination. And of course, we're flying Buffalo Airways, so we're going to have to fly from Hay River up to Yellowknife, because that just makes good, perfect sense. Now, quick little side note here. If you are going to be joining me on my live stream, by joining me I mean flying. Anybody can watch the live stream, of course, but next Sunday, or this coming Sunday, actually, what's today? Today's Monday. So this coming Sunday on the 15th of January, we're going to be back to our live streams, and we're going to be flying the hump in a DC-3, and this is the DC-3 we're going to be using. So if you're going to be flying that with me, this tutorial should help get you fired up. Now, you can see she's in cold and dark, but every time I start up the sim, no matter what I've done, it loads with the engines running. So I shut everything down, and we're good to go. There's probably a way to set it up as cold and dark by saving a flight or something like that. I'm not going to do that. I just soon shut everything down. We're going to just fly with full fuel tanks. I'm not worried about that today as well. This isn't about the fuel planning or anything like that. It's a direct route from Hay River up to Yellowknife. It is a route that is flown regularly by Buffalo Airways as well, so I'm really excited about that. And before we jump in the aircraft, there's a couple of things I want to show you. So if you hit what do you got? Shift 2, Shift 3, Shift 4. Let's see, this one's Shift 4. You got this guy here. Let me just bring this stuff over here. Shift plus a number key pops these guys up, right? Okay. All of these guys, and it does have a GPS in it. And you can fly it via GPS with this guy right here. So the autopilot in the aircraft, the old school autopilot, is not functional in this version, but there is an autopilot on it. It's this guy right here, and it is a very good and very effective autopilot. It works very well, does exactly what you ask it to do, no problems. As you can see, as I mouse over things here, a little hand pops up. I can do all kinds of stuff with this thing. And we're not going to go through every little detail. You guys can explore that for yourself. Just know that you can use this stuff on here. You can turn on lights, nav lights. There's no power on right now, but you can turn on the lights and all that stuff from here, or you can do it from in the aircraft. And we're going to show you how to do most of this stuff inside the aircraft. But keep this panel, if you got a second screen like I do, keep it off to the side. I undock the window. If you don't, it's Shift plus 4 to monitor it. So you just hit Shift 4 and it'll pop up. It won't have this little bar on it up here. If I see, it'll look like that. Okay, so, and you can still do everything on it. You can do all the stuff on it. I just see, well, I just changed something right there. I didn't want to do that, actually. Let me shift that back and put my mixture all the way down. There we go. So anyway, I keep the window undocked and off to the side over here. So this is awesome. This is really, it is. It gives you information about what's going on with the engines, the whole shebang. Like I said, explore this thing for yourself. Get to know everything that's on here. This is about learning to fly the aircraft. That's what we're going to focus on today. We're not going to focus on all of the functions here, although we will use the autopilot today. I hand flew it from Yellowknife almost all the way down here, and then put the autopilot on to see how it works, and it was fantastic. Checklists are interactive and do work. You can see I've got co-pilot and captain's voice both on, and then when you start the checklist, you'll hear them talking, and then if something isn't done, you'll have to actually perform that action before the checklist will move on. Also, you'll click here to initially start it, and then you'll have an option down here to repeat what he said. So if you didn't hear what he said, you can click repeat and he'll say it again. And that way you know what you're supposed to do. GPS is pretty straightforward. We'll put that over there. So we are going to use the checklist today. Now, when the engines are running, it's a little hard to hear them talking. That's my only issue. I did crank up the sound on voice on this, and I turned the engine sounds down a little in hopes of being able to hear them a little better. But it can still be a little hard to hear them when the engines are running. So keep that in mind. Also, as you're flying this thing, just as a little side note in case I forget to say it later, this aircraft, if you overstress the engines, you're toast, man. You're gonna burn those engines out. So, and I did it once already. Actually, I was doing some touch and goes up at Yellowknife, and I was doing touch and goes, and I throttled the engines all the way up for my takeoff after touching down. And I left them up there too long, and they cut out on me, and I crashed. So that can't happen. So checklist, we're definitely going to be using those again. I keep that popped up over here. Then you've got a status. Here's shift 2. This gives you status, how much fuel is in the tanks, what your empty weight is. This is a quick look. I've actually set up a quick key to show us the fuel tanks inside. I've been using that instead of this, but it does give you your total fuel, gives you your weight on board, and you can change all of this stuff. We're not going to mess with it. I'm going to leave everything as is, but you can make changes to this as well. Oh, I almost forgot. On the checklist, you can also turn a stewardess on. We're not going to have one, but you can do it. I haven't tried it yet. So I actually leave this thing closed. I haven't been using this, but there you go. There's some status information for you. And then you got a control panel here. You can actually say I can turn the battery on right now. I can put external power.
Yes, see? Captain. Just a moment.
And I don't want to do that. So I'm going to leave that back off. And you hear they respond to you when you do that. You can turn radios on, nav radios, all of that stuff. You can do all of that from here. Again, I don't use this. Almost all of this stuff you can do inside the flight deck or the cockpit, so that's where we're going to be doing it from. So there's some of the different add-ons to this that, like I said, this thing's free, and they did an amazing job on it, and I'm really, really, really impressed by it. So that being said, let's hop inside. Actually, let's take a quick look here. External modeling. Now, this is the Buffalo Airways repaint. I don't remember who did it. I'll try to look it up. But if you just type in Manfred Jahns Buffalo DC-3 Buffalo Airways or something like that, it'll pop up on Google. You'll find it easy enough. And this is obviously the weathered one. They did a really neat job on this. I like it. It looks fantastic. The modeling on this aircraft is beautiful. And I don't normally spend a lot of time talking about the way the airplane looks and stuff. But this is free, you guys. This is free. Look at that. They modeled all of the cylinder heads in there, the whole shebang. Really beautiful. Chocks are on right now. You can remove chocks with this guy right here. I have to find it real quick. I think it's in miscellaneous. Yeah, chocks. So I can remove them or I can turn them on just by clicking that. Really cool. So fantastic job. Let's hop into the flight deck here. Takes just a second to load in. Beautifully done flight deck. Really well modeled. Has that nice old weathered, well-used look to it. It's just fantastic. I really like it. This whole aircraft is just absolutely beautiful. I'm going to move those up, and the reason I'm going to move those up is because I need to move them manually when starting the engines. By manually, I mean with the mouse. And then if I I did that before and I tried to they were down on my throttle quadrant, so I wanted to even my throttle quadrant out with them, and as soon as I moved it, of course, they hopped back down and it tried to kill the engines mid-flight. I don't want that. So set those right there, and then I can go ahead and just drag them back like that, and then we'll be good to go. So there's your mixture, there's your throttles, there's your props. There's all kinds of stuff in here. You guys know by now I like cockpit tool tips. So down here you've got your rudder trim. You've got your tail wheel lock here. Down here, see if we can get it. There's the parking brake. It's on. This is the autopilot master, but it doesn't actually work in the aircraft. This is autopilot stuff here, and you can see it's all inoperable right now. So we need to use the autopilot on this guy in order to make this thing work. So not a problem. I like it. It still works fantastic, and this is going to make for a really fun time when we fly the hump. So definitely looking forward to that. Very simple aircraft, actually, once you get to know it. When you first look in here, you might think, oh my god, how do I do this? Okay, and that happens a lot, especially with a new airplane, especially when you're used to flying newer aircraft and then you jump to one of these older aircraft. It's a whole different world in the way these things function. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to fire this thing up. We're going to grab our checklist here, and we've already got cockpit or co-pilot help and captain's voice on, so we can go right into the before start checklist. And to start, we actually click here. So let's listen to what they tell us. Now I could do this as a flow already, but actually I want to go through it one item at a time. So that's what we're going to do.
Well, Ernie, ready? Let's do the before engine start checklist, please. Before start checklist. Parking brake set and checked. Doors closed. Battery.
Okay, so the battery's not on yet. That's this one over here. Up is external and down is internal. Left click it.
On. Ground power. GPU disconnected. Generators.
And that's these two right here. Left click them.
Both on. Beacon.
Beacon's over here.
Is on. Nav lights.
Right next to beacon.
That's on. Cabin signs.
Those two are over here. Fasten seatbelts and no smoking.
Both on. Ignition master.
Ignition master is this little knob right here. Pull it out to turn it off. Push it in to turn it on.
Is on. Magnetos. Checked both off.
Supposed to both be off. That's
Fuel
these
quantity.
two.
Left main. Check.
Okay, so he's doing fuel now, and I set a quick key for this. You could check it right here. Okay. As far as what's in your fuel, you can check it on this guy right here because it's going to tell you. Where was it at? I know I saw it. Fuel. Oh, it's just giving us a total here. So to do these checks, we did the left main. You zoom down here. It's on the co-pilot side, and you just click this with the mouse. Or actually, I've been rolling the mouse wheel. So roll the mouse wheel up to right main.
Left auxiliary. Check.
Oops. It was on. Okay, I left clicked it and it went down to left auxiliary. The mouse wheel didn't want to work.
Check.
Let's restart this.
Could you repeat that, please, Ernie? Fuel quantity.
Come on.
Right auxiliary. Check.
There we go. Then you click
Fuel
at the
selectors. Set and checked. Carburetor heat. Checked on cold. Trim. Set to 0. Cowl flaps. Full open. Mixture. Idle cutoff. Throttle.
Okay, I'm going to leave the throttle alone for just a second because I want to cover a couple of those things. So cowl flaps are these two black knobs up here with a C. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, that's carb heat, not cowl flaps. That's carb heat right there. Cowl flaps are these guys over here. So you rotate them all the way up to 100, and that's your cowl flaps full open. The fuel check, what we were doing there is he calls out whatever one it's on. He tells you you've checked it, and then you rotate it through all four of them. They'll check all four of them, and then you're done with the checks on that. And I think that was all of that. So for the throttles right now, for whatever reason, they're not registering as being all the way down. Let's try that again. Repeat.
Could you repeat that, please, Ernie? Throttle.
It's all the way up. Okay, so for some reason it's not registering the throttle right now, right? Okay, so that's not a big deal. As you see, it's at 0%. So when it's not registering, we should be able to just go to next item.
Next item, please. Prop control. Full forward. Flight controls.
Okay, so this is an actual flight controls check, and it's actually going to, you just go through it. I don't know if there's a specific order. What I've always done is full up, full down, left, right, and then rudders, and that's been working. So let's do that.
Elevator full up. Elevator full down. Ailerons left. Ailerons right. Rudder full left. Rudder full right. Flight controls checked and free. Before start checklist complete.
Okay, so that takes care of our before start checklist. And you saw with the throttles, for whatever reason, oh, I know why. I know exactly why. They're actually supposed to be cracked to 10%. That's why. I forgot about that. So you actually have to have them up a little bit. You want to have them up to about right around 10%. And they'll say the callback will be cracked. That'll be the callback on the throttles. So we bring them up. That's probably just a little over, but that's where they need to be to start the engines. And I forgot about that. So by putting them all the way down, it wasn't registering. But you can see that if you can't figure something out or you can't get something to work right, you can just click on next item. Let's get that out of the way. Click on next item and it moves along in the checklist, right? So that's our before start checklist. Now there is no start checklist. It doesn't walk us through the process. All right, but the manual that comes with this is actually very good. It's very simple and very straightforward, and it's actually not that hard to start the engines, but you do want to keep in mind they take some time to start. All right, so let me get to my engine start page over here just to make sure I don't mess anything up. So we want to make sure that the parking brakes are set. The battery's on, which we did that during our before start checklist. That was this guy over here. Nav lights and beacon are on. Ignition master is on. That's this guy right here, so you got to push it in. All right, mixture is to idle cutoff, which it is, so we're good on that. Throttle is cracked 10%. That's what I was just telling you about right there. Propellers are full forward. That's these two over here, which they are. Check the area is clear. And now comes the fun part. So this is a little bit of a pain to figure it out. What you need to do here is you need to turn the fuel pump on. So we're going to start with the right engine. You can hear the fuel pump comes on there, okay? And then this is the primer for the right engine, and this is the starter. And what we're going to do is we're going to left click, hold down, and drag the starter down and move our mouse off of it so we can let go of the button and the starter will stay in position. Okay, now first I think you're supposed to be able to just click it, but it kept bouncing back for me for some reason. And then that's going to start spinning it. And you're supposed to wait until you see 9 to 15 blades. So what that means is you would be looking out here, and when you see a blade go by 9 to 15 times, once that's done, you'll advance the mixture to about 50%, right? And then you'll continue to either hold the prime down or prime repeatedly until the engine starts. And then once it does, the mixture goes to auto rich. And then you want to increase your throttles a little to bring the RPMs up until the engine warms up. Is that making sense to everybody? I know that sounds like a lot, and it is a lot. I'm trying to tell you all in advance because once you start doing it, you got to go kind of quick. And I'm going to try and talk through it, but we don't want to make a mess of things, right? So hopefully you guys caught all of that. So generators are on, fuel pump is on the right one. I usually go ahead and prime it for just about like 5 seconds, let go of the primer, and then we'll engage. And let's see if we can get where... Okay, right there. So let's engage the right.
Engine 2 is turning.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, once that's done, we're going to bring this up to about 50% and kick on the magnetos. I forgot to mention that. Kick it to both by right-clicking twice and then continue to prime. It takes a while to start. Come on. Come on, baby. Not wanting to start. The engine's cold, so it takes some time. So let's turn that off. Kick that back down and turn the magnetos back off. Left click twice to get them to off. The engine just doesn't want to start yet because it's cold. All right, so we'll do the I did do it actually out of order. It's magnetos then the mixture. Okay, so we're not going to count the blades this time. We're just going to let them turn for a few seconds. So
Engine 2 is turning.
1001, about 5 seconds is probably going to do it. Prime it while you're doing it and then turn these to both, right click. And then once that's done, advance the mixture to 50%. There we go, 50. And then continue to prime. Come on, baby. There she goes.
Starting up.
That'll kick off. Mixture to, hold on. Whoop, that's a little too high. I've been putting it right around 17 or 18%. The mixture goes to auto rich. That's what I meant to say. So mixture to auto rich. There's a Captain Mac cough for you. And then bring that throttle up to probably, like I said, 17% seems to work pretty good. That gets the RPMs a little over 1,000. You could pull it a little lower if you wanted, maybe 15%. Okay, but we want that engine to be able to warm up. And you can see it takes a minute for that thing to start. It doesn't start really quick, does it? So, and it's going to be the same thing for engine number 1. So we're going to come up here, and we're going to, I like to prime it a little first. That seems to work a little better. So hold the primer for 2 or 3 seconds, like so. Okay, well, we got to have the fuel pump on or it doesn't do any good. Hold the primer for 2 or 3 seconds. And then we'll turn the starter on. It takes about 5 seconds. to get your 9 to 15 blades, right about there, and then right click this to both, fuel to 50%, and then prime. Come on, baby. There she goes.
Engine 1 starting up.
Let go of the primer. That kicks off. Bring your throttles up. About 15%.
Oil pressure is coming up.
As the pressure starts to come up, the RPMs will start to come up. You can see that happening right here.
Engine 1 stabilized.
Easy days, right? Okay. It'll continue to come up a little bit more until they even out. And that's how you start the engines on this aircraft. Not too bad, right? So just as a quick recap, to start the engines, you want to make sure the fuel pumps are on. Prime it for 2 to 3 seconds. And then click the starter on, and as she starts turning, you want 9 to 15 blades. If you want to count them, go ahead and count them. That's fine. But it takes about 5 seconds to get 9 to 15 blades. Click your magnetos to both by right-clicking them. Once you've done that, you bring your mixture up to 50%. Then you come back up here and you hold the primer down. It says continue to prime or hold primer. Holding it just seems to work fine. So I just hold the primer until the engine kicks in. Once it kicks in and the starter kicks off, let go of the primer, come back down here, excuse me, bring your throttles up to about 15% to start warming the engines. This is our cylinder head temperature over here. There's our carb temperature, there's our oil temp. All those are starting to come up. We want them into the green before we go anywhere. And then you're good to go. That's how we start the engines on this bad boy. Easy days, right? Now, we still have a before taxi checklist. Fuel pumps can actually come off now, believe it or not. So fuel pumps can both go off. Generators are on. We want inverters to come on. And that's where we get the power for our GPS and all our other stuff there. So inverters are on now. We don't need landing lights on yet. We can turn cabin lights on if we want or leave them off. It doesn't really matter. But I don't think the night lights work on this thing yet. I think it's only rated for daytime operations at the moment. So that's something to keep in mind. I haven't tried flying it at night, so I don't know if the night... Excuse me, I need to get something to drink here. There we go. I don't know if the nighttime lighting works yet. So just something to keep in mind. Now, we've got her up and running. We're ready to taxi out. Now, we're not doing a taxi brief or anything like that. Let's hop outside here real quick. And one really nice thing is it's not particularly loud outside, which is kind of nice. And that's probably because I turned down the engine sound a little bit and all that. But it's not overwhelming, so you can hop outside and take a look. And this is a beautiful aircraft, isn't it? Now, just a little note. If you use this guy right here, the monitor here, again, Shift+4. If you use this and release chocks, it also releases the brakes.
Taxi checklist, please. Before taxi checklist. Inverters.
I didn't ask for that.
Avionics is on. Magnetos, right and left are both. Fuel pumps is off. Tail wheel unlocked. Flaps. Flaps are up. Mixture.
You always have to move this a little.
Auto rich. Before taxi checklist complete.
Okay. Not really sure why it started doing that checklist. I don't know. Maybe it was from dragging this over or something else. But anyway, if I click the chocks off, see how she starts to roll forward? Okay. It turns off the parking brakes for some reason. So go ahead and make sure you click your parking brakes on. There we go. If you're going to take the wheel chocks off, hold the brakes down, take the wheel chocks off, and put your parking brakes on, unless you're ready to go. Okay, so just a little side note there. We are going to take, what runway is that over there? I don't have a chart in front of me, believe it or not. Whoops. Well, whatever. We're going to be taking this runway over here. This guy. I know that's not the right way to do it. Give me a little love, though. Looks like it's runway 31. So we're going to take runway 31, and that's pretty much a straight out departure. The winds are pretty calm, so I'm not too worried about it. I'm not worried about the weather because the winds are calm. So we're going to go on that. Now let's talk about taxiing this thing. We've done the before taxi checklist. It was accidental, but it's done. The tail wheel does not turn with the rudder. Okay, that's not how this thing works. So what happens is you have to actually use asymmetric thrust and your differential braking. Okay, so if you don't have rudder pedals with toe brakes, you're gonna need to set something up in order to taxi. Now that being said, there is a little note that says you can go into the config file and you can set it so that the rudder pedal moves the tail wheel. I didn't do that because I want to keep it a little more realistic. I like the way it's set up, but it does make it difficult to taxi. We're going to be all over the place during this taxi, so stand by for that. So alright then, track IR is going to come on. Little jump here. There it is. Jumps really quick. Nice thing about this is you can kind of look up and around and it makes it a little easier. So we're going to actually take... Sorry, I had to look over at my throttles. So I pressed the rudder brakes on my pedals and that releases the parking brake. That's just a default thing. And what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to bring... And let me see if I can show you here. I'm going to bring the left throttle up. Okay. You can see the left throttle coming up. Not too high. And you look over here, you can see the left throttle is higher than the right, okay? And then I'm going to release the left brake first, and then release the right brake. And as she starts to go forward, I'll use those differential brakes and bring in a little more of that left throttle, okay? And that's how we get her to turn nice and tight here. And that's what we need. Now the tail wheel will be turning back there, but only because the aircraft is turning. So the key is, or the trick, or what makes this tricky, is evening out the throttle. See, now it wants to keep going left, so I use a little, or right, I use a little bit of left brake and bring in a little more right throttle at first, and now she wants to pick up speed. So what I found seems to work the best is you find a decent semi-quick taxi speed. As long as you're making shallow turns, you can just lightly tap on the differential brakes and it works out just fine. And then if it seems like it's going to keep going to the side and you don't want it to, let's make sure we're clear here. We're clear on the left. I should have all AI traffic turned off right now anyway. So she's drifting to the right a little. But the thing is when I got to make a sharp turn like this and I have to hit a lot of differential braking, I start to lose all my momentum and the aircraft doesn't want to keep going. So you got to find that setting that really works. We're going to back taxi here. Okay, and the reason it keeps turning is because the tail wheel turned with the aircraft and you got to get it straight in order for the tail wheel to straighten out, right? So you got to kind of work back and forth with your differential toe brakes until you get her straightened up. So I'm going to taxi down to the end here, and then once I get to the end, we'll do a turnaround, and I'll have you on here for the turnaround and lineup just so that you can see, because we're going to use a lot of asymmetrical thrust and whatnot on that. But you don't need to watch me taxi all the way down the runway here, so we'll be back in just a minute. Alright, so as you can see, we're coming up to the turnaround spot here. I'm going to use a little extra on the differential braking to get her nice and slow as we pull off to the side here. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to back the right throttle off a little and bring the left up a bit. I'm still holding the left differential brake for the moment, keeping her straight. Okay, now I want her to swing around. Right differential brake and a little more on the left throttle. Okay, and I don't want to use, I want to get up here and I want to have as much runway as I can, so I use that left brake to keep me from turning too fast so I can get all the way up here a little bit further. And of course I've got more room than you can tell with the way FSX is set up. Now I bring in that right differential brake so that I can swing her around nice and tight, bring in a little bit more throttle. You'll see she starts to swing really quick. Now the catch is to let off, and I don't care if I'm in the center of the runway. What I do care about is whether or not I'm pointed straight down the runway. Okay? Throttle's all the way back, a little bit of left brake to help line her up straight. And then we'll bring her to a nice easy stop. We want to roll a few feet forward, make sure that tail wheel is straight, right? Okay, track IR coming off, little jump here. There it is. Okay, fantastic. So for takeoff, once we're ready to go, first of all we want to make sure that the tail wheel is locked, and that's one of these guys down here, right? So this guy is a parking brake. Here's your tail wheel. The lock is off. Click it on. We want tail wheel locked, and we can make sure that it's straight. And you can see there, it looks like the tail wheel's straight, so it's great to, that's where we want to lock it into place so it's not trying to pull us to one side as we're headed down the runway. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to hold the toe brakes on and we're going to advance the throttles until we get to 30 on the manifold pressure. Okay, and we're going to hold the brakes until we get there. Then we're going to release brakes using the differential braking at first to keep it lined up down the runway until we gain a little speed. And as we're doing that, and this is where it gets a little difficult on takeoff, As we're doing that, we're going to advance the throttles no higher than 42 on the manifold pressure, which is going to be right around in here. Okay, 36 to 42 is where we want to be. We've got plenty of runway, so we'll probably put it right about 40. And then we want a maximum RPM of 2400. Okay, that's what it says on here, but it's probably going to be a little higher than that initially. So if we have to, we'll back our props off just a little bit, but we're going to be really busy during this takeoff. All right, at 60 knots, the tail wheel should come up, but at 40 knots, if we want, we can push the nose forward a little to help the tail wheel come up. Okay, and then 85 knots is about where we want to rotate. Once we got that positive rate of climb, we'll bring the landing gear up. I've mapped it to my yoke. However, the landing gear is this guy down here, if I remember correctly. Yep, so it's down, so you would pull that up. These are the flaps. We're going to not use flaps for takeoff. You can do a flap 0 takeoff, no problem on this thing. If you got a really short runway, you'd want to use flaps, and you can use up to full flaps if you want. Once that's done, we're going to roll into that after takeoff checklist. At the same time, we're going to be trying to set our climb settings, which is 36 on the manifold pressure and 2350 on the RPM. So we're going to be busy. We'll probably do that before we do the after takeoff checklist. Everybody tracking on all of that? I think we're probably good to go. So track IR coming on here, little jump. There it is. And we've got the brakes on. Let's go and bring that manifold pressure up to 30, nice and easy. We don't want to slam it up there too hard. There we go. There's 30 right there. We can go ahead and release the brakes. We can use differential braking if we need to keep her straight. We're looking pretty good, so let's go ahead and bring it up to 40. Okay, see, now she wants to go left, but now we're getting a little speed, so a little differential braking and a little rudder, and the two together are going to help. And you can see, so she pulls hard, doesn't she? Now I'm off the differential brakes. Rudder's only, there's 85, so go ahead and start pulling her back nice and easy. You don't want to do it too hard. There's a positive rate of climb. Let's go ahead and get the gear up. I forgot to do the before takeoff checklist, didn't I? I was so busy yapping, I completely forgot, which means there's a couple things we missed. Landing lights should have been on, and during takeoff, you're supposed to have your fuel pumps on. Okay, everything else is good to go as far as our takeoff was concerned. I just forgot to set that up, so my bad. Sorry about that. Anyway, now that we're climbing out, let's go ahead. I feel like an idiot for forgetting that, but that was the before takeoff checklist. Very simple. Anyway, so we want to set 36 on the manifold pressure, which is right about there, and we want to set her at, where are you at, 2350, and pull those props back slow, because what happens, there's a little delay in them, okay, and if you pull them back too fast, they'll actually go much lower than you expect. So there's 2350 right there. We want to maintain about 1,000 feet per minute in the climb, which is right about where we're at, so we're looking good there. Not a problem. Okay, so my apologies on the before takeoff checklist, but let's do the after takeoff checklist.
After takeoff checklist, please. After takeoff checklist. Landing gear. Gear up and looking go lights. Flaps. Flaps retracted. Landing lights.
Landing lights got to come off. You can barely hear them, I know.
Power off. Fuel pumps.
Okay, so he said fuel pumps, but you can hit repeat. He'll say it again.
Could you repeat that, please, Ernie? Fuel pumps.
So he said fuel pumps, so fuel pumps come off.
Is after takeoff checklist complete.
And that completes the after takeoff checklist. All right, track IR coming off. Little jump here. Okay, we're going to let her climb up to 9,000 feet, and I'll show you how to use the autopilot here in a minute, but I'm actually going to leave it as is, hand flying, and let her just keep climbing. Okay, so we're going to YZF, and let me grab my VOR frequency here real quick, because I forgot to grab that too. I'm just soup sandwich today. So 115.5 is our VOR frequency, so we actually need to hop down here. This is where your nav radios are. So 115.5. If you just scroll this inner knob, that's your, I forget which part of the frequency this is, but that's these numbers here. So we want that at 5. There we go. And then this outer knob up to 115. Okay, so we're good on that now. Now it's behind us, just so you know, in case you're wondering. That's behind us right now. So we're going to start making our turn. You can see this shows that we're headed from YZF right now, not to. We want to be headed to it. So let's see what's our current heading to head to it. Okay, you saw the flag flip there. Let's do it again. Okay. Come on. That's away. Watch, there's the flag just flipped. So that's a heading to it. That's not our heading, that's the heading to it. And then if we continue to rotate, it's basic VOR navigation, continue to rotate the card until it centers up. So we need to fly that heading right there, which is what, 350. If we fly 350 degrees, that'll line us up. So that's what we're going to fly. We're going to fly 350 degrees to the VOR. So I'm going to, as I'm starting to swing this around here, let's go ahead and take a look at the autopilot. Okay, autopilot is very simple on this. You set your altitude using either one of these. I could just set it for 10,000. I could set it for 5,000. These are just quick settings. Okay, we want to go, we're going to fly at 9,000. So set it to 10 and then hold it over this and scroll down until you get to 9,000. Very simple, right? Okay, there's that. We want our heading to be 350 degrees. So I'm going to change this to 350 by scrolling the mouse wheel up while holding over it. And that's actually going to change shortly, and you'll see, because we're going to have to intercept that radial now. Okay, so there's 350. We can set our vertical speed if we want. We're going to climb at 1,000 feet per minute, so we're going to leave that as is. We can fly nav or GPS. It's up to us. Okay, and then we want to turn the thing on. You turn it on up here. But before I do that, let's make sure. Okay, so right now, if I turn it on, I want to make sure that 350 is somewhere on this side of the card, since I'm making a gentle left turn right now. Because if it's on this side of the card, the aircraft will turn back to the right, and I don't want to do that. So we'll let her just get a little bit further here, and then we'll flip on the autopilot. This thing's easy to hand fly, but since we're doing a tutorial, and you'll probably want to know how to use this, and it's just easier to do a tutorial while it's on autopilot, right? Okay, so we're far enough around there. 350's over here, so click on the autopilot. Okay. There we go, and she should be locked on now. So autopilot's on. It should climb to 9,000 feet. It should turn to 350 degrees. It'll probably maintain that bank. Let's see, vertical speed. Just jiggle it a little bit like I just did, and now it climbs back to 1,000, right? You can even do speed setting on here, but I'd rather control the speed by hand. Now the manual does say to climb at about 120 knots, which we're doing. And you can see as we start to get a little higher here, here's our altimeter. We're coming up to 6,500 feet right now. As we start to get a little higher, our manifold pressure will start to drop off a little bit because of the altitude. Alright? So she's going to keep swinging around, and it should line up at 350 degrees. Now, does that mean we're going to be tracking to the VOR properly? No, definitely not. And right now, it's not even registering the VOR. She's just flying in a circle at the moment. I'm looking over here at the GPS. This is kind of weird. GPS is weird. Watch this. When I zoom in, it's going to change where that aircraft is. See that? Isn't that weird? And this thing, it's like way off, isn't it? It's kind of weird, actually. So we're swinging over to 350 degrees, but that's not even close. It's telling us we need to go 003. So that's weird, actually. It's kind of being weird. So let's rotate this. See, it's off right now. It's not even registering the VOR right now. Oh, now it is. Oh, it moved. When I turned the autopilot on, it moved. That's why. Okay. So 350 degrees is what we wanted, right? Okay, so we should actually be going to the right. Instead, she's just turning. See, it turned past 350. So maybe you gotta have wings level or something. Oh no, I'm a moron. Never mind. Just, you know what? Ignore me completely. Okay? Here's the deal. If you want this, so I gotta click on altitude. Now it's gonna hold it. I gotta click on V-speed. Well, it'll do V-speed automatically, right? Okay, and then I gotta click on heading. I've only used the autopilot once, guys. Give me a break. Now you see it's turning. Don't mind me, just having a good time here. So we're way off course right now, but that's alright. So now it's going to turn to 350 degrees. Alright, but you should see we'll still be to the right of the VOR, and that's alright. So what we'll do is we'll get to 350, and then we'll turn a little further to the right, because we need to intercept that radial now, right? That's what we want to fly, 350. Again, basic VOR navigation and clearly basic autopilot use. Let's get that out of the way now. We got the autopilot working. So we're still to the right of it. So let's go ahead and actually I'm going to adjust it on here. So I'll bring it back over. So 350, let's take it 20 degrees. So that'd be 10 degrees to the right. There we go. 20 degrees beyond 350. So 360, and then that would be 0, right? And then it's 10. So we're 20 degrees. We're 20 degrees to the right of the course we actually want to fly, and we'll fly that until this needle moves to the center. Okay, and then we'll turn to 350 degrees, and that'll intercept the radio. Again, basic VOR navigation. I've done a tutorial on it in the past. A lot of you have seen it. Good times. Okay, so now we're good to go. We're at 9,000 feet as well, in case you didn't notice. Okay, can you click on that? Oh, that just changes the altimeter setting, which should have been set, but apparently not. So it'll descend back down to 9,000. So cruise altitude now. We have to remember that there's no pressurized cabin, okay? So you can't really go, it'll climb higher, but you don't really want to fly above 10,000, and you definitely don't want to fly above 15,000 because there's no pressure. You'd have to have oxygen for that, okay? So cruise power for us, we want to set, let me just reorganize a couple things on the other screen so I can see what I'm doing. So we want to set 30 inches on the manifold pressure, okay? So we're going to bring those throttles back a little bit. That's going to put us to 30. Okay, this is just the one cruise setting they recommend. This is for a, what do you call it? This is for economy cruise. You can cruise much faster as well. But we're just setting this one for the moment. And then 2050 or 2050 on the RPMs. So I'm bringing the prop levers back nice and easy because you can see it kind of jumps on you a little bit. So just bring them back nice and easy until you get to 2050. A little bit more. A little more. That should be pretty close. Let's see what it tells us. It's not even going to tell us what's at. Okay, so that's going to be close enough though to 2050, and that's our economy cruise. And your economy cruise should give you a speed around 140 to 150 knots indicated. And look at that, we're spot on at 149 knots indicated. Okay, still waiting to intercept our VOR. It's going to be a minute here, and then again we'll just turn and we'll intercept that radial, and then in we go. And that takes us all the way into the cruise phase. And since it's become a Captain Mac tradition, the only thing to do now is take care of some of that obligatory elevator music. Alright, we're going to be coming up on our top of descent here pretty soon, and we're using the very simple method to calculate top of descent. We're looking at descending at 1,000 feet per minute, approximately 180 knots, and that means we're gonna fly approximately 3 nautical miles per minute, right? So we wanna calculate 3 nautical miles distance for every 1,000 feet we want to go down. We want to go down to 2,000 feet from 9,000. All right. So what we're looking at is 7,000 feet, 21 nautical miles out. We're at 24 right now. I'm using the GPS to verify that. You can see that we're tracking in spot on our VOR at 350 degrees. Got an itchy nose here. Sorry. Okay. So we're going to use the autopilot to descend to begin with, and when we start our descent, what we want to do, we're going to use a typical descent power setting of 20 inches on the manifold pressure, okay, and 2,000 RPM. So we'll bring the RPMs back just a hair. We'll bring the manifold pressure down to 20, but I'm not going to bring it down to 20 until we start getting close to 180 knots, because I want to be spot on, or as close to spot on as I can, regarding our descent rate. And we're at 22 nautical miles right now, so let's get started here, because it's going to start at 500. Watch this. So I'm going to scroll this down. I want to go down to 2,000 feet. Whoops, that was too far. Come on. There's 2,000 feet, and it automatically goes to 500 feet per minute, so we want to crank that to 1,000. It starts to roll itself over. Like I said, we're going to just let the autopilot do its thing for now. This thing is very easy to hand fly. Very easy stick and rudder flying, so you don't have to use the autopilot. I'm just using it mostly for on this short flight. I'm just using it to show you guys how. When we do our flying the hump, we're definitely going to be using it, because those are some long flights. All right. Anyway, so let's get that out of the way there, and you can see we're starting to creep up on 180 knots here. As we get a little closer, what I want to do is I want to roll my manifold pressure back to 2,000 or to 20. Sorry, 20 inches of mercury. So let's bring that back nice and easy. We don't want to do it too fast. Okay, there we go. And then we just barely need to move these props just a little bit to bring it down to 2,000. Now, that should settle us at 180 knots, but it doesn't look like it's going to do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the manifold pressure back up just a little bit, so I'm increasing my throttles. That's how you move the manifold pressure, with your throttles. In case somebody's sitting there going, well, how do I change manifold pressure? You use the throttles. So we want to descend at 180 knots, because that's what we planned for. So I'm going to keep that manifold pressure up a little bit until we hit 180 knots, and that's what I want to try to maintain during the descent. As far as our landing goes, we're going to be landing pretty much straight in, runway 34 up here at Yellowknife. And just as a little side note, if you don't have, listen, I've got Orbix FTX Global. I think you guys know that. Maybe you don't, but if you don't, now you know. So I've got Orbix FTX Global, and then once you have FTX Global, you can get all of Orbix freeware airports, and they've got tons of them for North America, and I mean a lot of them. And Hay River, both Hay River and Yellowknife, are freeware airports from Orbix. So they're pretty nice looking. You'll see as we fly in here. I don't know if you noticed at Hay River, but up here at Yellowknife, this is also a freeware airport from Orbix. So good stuff there. Anyway, we're 16 nautical miles out. We're going to be coming up here like this, and then making a little left-hand turn, and we'll be pointed right at the runway. We're coming down, what are we at here? 6,700 feet about. So we're descending nicely. Our speed's right about 180. So we're pretty much spot on there. We want to make sure it doesn't go over. So if we have to, we'll bring the throttles back just a little bit to do that. And then we'll start setting up for our approach and landing here pretty soon. So we need to reduce altitude and speed as we approach the airport. Set the mixture to auto rich. It's already there. Once we get below 130 knots or on extended approach, we can lower the landing gear. So we'll be reducing speed here pretty soon. In fact, let's go ahead and start doing that now. Let's start bringing the speed back. And we're going to have to pull those throttles way below 20 to get that speed to come all the way back. So let's just bring them down to 15 for now on the manifold pressure. Okay, and let's see if that gets us down. We want to be down to about 130 knots. Now, once you'll lower the landing gear, and then once you put the first setting of flaps in, they're going to automatically go into the before landing checklist, which is awesome. So you don't even have to click on the thing; they'll automatically go into it. They did a really good job on this thing. We want to try and maintain about 100 knots until we start our final descent, and set the flaps to 1/2 to keep speed constant. It sort of walks you through, probably, I guess for lack of a better term, best practices. We're going to use our general flying skills to fly this aircraft into the airport. Simple as that. I'm not going to go all crazy with trying to do it exactly how they say to do it in there. But the key is we want to get that speed down. We're at about 150 right now. Still coming down a little bit. Now remember, at a 1,000 foot per minute descent rate, the slower we're going, the faster we're actually going down. Okay, because remember, time and distance are proportional to each other. So if we're flying slower, we're not covering as much distance. We're still 11 nautical miles out from the airport, and probably lower than we would be if we, well, we're definitely lower than we would be if we'd have maintained 180 knots. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're descending in an aircraft like this that doesn't have a flight management computer. The slower you descend, the slower your speed. We're not talking vertical speed, we're talking indicated airspeed. The slower your indicated airspeed, the sooner you'll reach, distance-wise, the sooner you'll reach your whatever given altitude you're set at. So we'll get to 2,000 feet a lot earlier because we slowed down. And that's good, though. We want to be there a little early so we got some time to set up for the approach. Now, we're still 10 nautical miles out, and you can see we're 4,300 feet now, so we'll be down to 4,000 feet here shortly, and that's fine. And then once it starts to level off at 2,000 feet, if we haven't already done so, we'll make our turn. We can see the airport right here, if you look right here. So we actually, what I want to do is I want to turn to the right a little bit, because that's our runway right there. I don't know if you can see that, but that's our runway, and it runs like this. Okay, we're still too high for that runway. That's okay. But what I'm doing is I'm just bringing it over here so that we can set up for our approach out here. I don't want to be trying to fly an approach at the last second into the airfield, right? And I'm still using the autopilot. That's fine. Again, very easy to hand fly this airplane. I'm just using the autopilot for the moment because I'm doing a lot of talking here, and I want to make sure I don't mess anything up. But we're going to take that off here shortly, I can tell you that. In fact, I think I'm ready to take it off right now, to be honest with you. So, track higher coming on, little jump here. There it is. Let me turn the autopilot off over here. Bam, autopilot is off. That's what that little click sound was. So we are manually flying the aircraft now. I'm not really messing with anything, but I do want to get the gear down here pretty soon. And we're still way too high, so we need to slow down more anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to decrease my rate of descent and throttles, bring the nose up a little. The aircraft's going to slow down quicker, right? Now remember, the slower I'm flying, the less distance I'm covering as I'm descending. So a little trim in there. There's 140, almost there. Okay, looking pretty good. All right, there's about 130 there. Let's get the landing gear down. That's going to help slow us down even more, which is fantastic. And so you can see the nose is trying to nose back over a little bit. Okay, we're slow enough.
Green lights.
Landing gear's down. He gave us green lights. Let's go ahead and bring the first setting of flaps in.
Flaps.
There we go.
1/4.
And then bring in a little power. Let's bring our props all the way up now. Max RPM on the props. That means full forward on them. There you go. We're looking good. We're actually on the glide slope now, so we want to reduce that rate of descent just a little bit. We're going to fly it at about 120 knots, give or take just a little, just for now. We'll slow down a little more once we get on final approach. So right now I'm using the trim, and I'm using the yoke, and I'm using the throttles. As we get a little closer, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and bring in the next setting of flaps, and then we'll start using primarily the throttles to control our rate of descent. So right now we're right about 500 feet, looking pretty good, a little over 120 knots, not too shabby. Okay, so I'm just trimming her out. Got the runway dead ahead of us, looking pretty good. Okay, bring it just a touch of throttle. Let's bring in the next flap setting. And as we get a little closer, he will go into that before landing checklist. He better.
Flaps. 1/2.
Landing lights need to come on. Let's do that. And the fuel pumps need to come on. There we go. Got just a little high there. And that's because we got extra lift from those flaps now. Let's go ahead and let's have him. We can click on this still. He's been doing it automatically for me, but I'm going to click on it. So before landing.
On final, before landing checklist, please. Okay, before landing checklist. Mixture.
Got to move that mixture handle a little.
Is checked. Prop control. High RPM. Cowl flaps. Set trail. Fuel pumps. Both on. Landing lights. Checked on. Cabin signs. Check both on. Flaps. Flaps are set and checked. Landing gear. Gear down. Green lights. Tail wheel. Locked. Landing checklist complete.
Okay, they were talking over each other for a second there. You should have callouts. It does, every time I move this on, it freezes. I clicked this on, so we'll see if we get callouts. Or maybe I turned it off, I don't know. See, it freezes every time I move that. It's kind of weird. Still a little high here. Slow it down a little more. And I'm going to land with the flaps at 50. Need to slow down a little bit more. So to descend and slow down at the same time, you need to pull throttles back and add a little trim. There we go. Now we're on glide slope there. We want to maintain that. So that's about 500 feet per minute, give or take. About 100 knots, looking pretty good. Right over the hill. Let's see if he does our callouts for us. Now remember, when you land this, you don't want to slam on the brakes, okay, or it'll nose over. It's a tail dragger. Looking pretty good. Because the main gear's in the front, it bounces really easily. Okay. Gently pull back on the yoke so it doesn't lift off again. That'll help get the tail down. And then start to gently apply brakes. We got a little crosswind to the left, so we're applying a little more right brake than left right now. Okay. Looking pretty good.
Tail wheel unlocked.
Tail wheel lock is off. That's what he was saying. Let's bring in a little bit of throttle. A little more on the left than the right to help keep us centered down the runway here. And we'll take that high-speed exit right there, even though we're going quite slow. See, it's kind of hard to see, isn't it? Using differential braking to get me over there. Oh yeah, come on around. There we go. Looking good. Okay, let's go ahead and stop the engines. Well, not stop them, but let's bring them to idle. And let's go into our after landing checklist.
Okay, after landing checklist, please. Okay, after landing checklist. Cowl flaps, full open. Flaps. Flaps, they're up. Flaps are confirmed up. Landing lights are off. Pitot heat Checked off. Fuel pumps. Checked. Trim.
Oh, you guys set trim to 0.
Set to 0. Tail wheel. Unlocked. After landing checklist complete.
Okay, so in that before landing checklist that I missed like an idiot, you also got to turn the pitot heat on, which I didn't do. And without the pitot heat, if your pitot tube freezes up, you're not going to know how fast you're going. So, and there's other issues with that as well. So, yeah, make sure you get your pitot heat on. I did not. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and taxi it in using the same method I used before. And then once we get taxied in, we'll shut it down. Okay, as we bring it to a stop here, they should automatically go into the shutdown checklist. Let's find out once I put the parking brake on. Let me turn track IR off first. Little jump here. There it is. Parking brake coming on.
Well, that was a nice flight. Very nice, Captain. And the shutdown checklist, please. Shutdown checklist. Mixture. Idle cutoff. Magnetos and ignition master. Off. Tail wheel. Unlocked. Parking brake set and checked. Wheel chocks. Chocks are set. Lights. Checked. Inverters. Is off. Avionics. Off. Generators. Both off. Battery. That's off.
Right click that one.
Shutdown checklist complete.
Okay, and that shuts down the aircraft. Okay, and as you can see, they put the wheel chocks in for us. So other than missing the before takeoff checklist, which also meant not having my pitot heat on, which I would have noticed, by the way, if my airspeed stopped working. You'll know when that thing freezes up, your airspeed will stop working. But there's more than one on this aircraft, so maybe that's why I didn't have an issue. But anyway, that completes the full flight tutorial for the Manfred Jahns, or Jahns. I'm not sure how you say his name, so I'm sorry if I'm butchering it, but boy, you did a beautiful job on this aircraft. Interesting change of lighting there. But that completes the full flight tutorial for this. You can see it's really quite easy. The checklists are very helpful. They work you right through the thing. Autopilot works like a champ. GPS is easy to use. As a little side note, I did put a flight plan in there using the FSX default flight planner. You also use FSX default fuel planner to change your fuel payload, all of that stuff. So just keep that in mind if you want to make changes or need to make changes. But other than that, pretty straightforward, very easy aircraft to fly. Again, if you're going to be flying with us on the 15th of January, flying the hump in the DC-3, that's the first leg. This is the aircraft we're going to be flying. You can fly any DC-3 you want, but I don't know why you'd want to fly one other than this. And remember, it's free. So that's going to do it for this one, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for watching. As always, we're literally at 2,999 subscribers. So one of you, please hit the subscribe button already. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. The more thumbs up that I get on my videos, the easier they are to find in the search function. If you haven't done so, hop on over to Facebook and like us there. That's where the announcements for the live streams take place. You can also follow us on Twitter, and don't forget, follow us on Twitch now at Captain Mac 3588 so that you can join us for the live stream and comments and all of that stuff. Please don't come over there and be a troll, because that's just really annoying. That's all for this one, folks. Thanks once again. As always, keep the blue side up unless otherwise instructed by ATC. God bless you all. Have a fantastic day.